Triumph Titan 660. At first glance, it seems like a great deal. Stylish design, decent price tag, and a brand name like Triumph behind it. But as riders took to the streets, something didn't sit right. The 2024 Triumph Trident 660 with its 660cc engine packs a punch, sort of. While it's reliable and smooth, it just doesn't live up to the heart-pounding excitement that you'd expect from a Triumph. Riders were hoping for more power, more agility, and maybe a bit of that British charm. But instead, they got a bike that performs like it's still figuring out what it wants to be when it grows up. When compared to other middleweight naked bikes in its class, the Trident 660 is more like the kid who's always at the back of the race, trying hard but never really getting there. Its 79 horsepower just doesn't deliver that adrenaline rush many were hoping for. And sure, it's smooth, dependable, and great for cruising around, but dependable isn't what gets the heart racing on a Triumph. Riders looking for cutting-edge technology and features might be left scratching their heads. This bike doesn't exactly scream modern with its basic features. In fact, the bike feels like it's still stuck in the past, trying to cling to nostalgia instead of embracing new age advancements. The Triumph Trident 660 was supposed to be an entry-level bike, but some riders have found it to feel more like a no-thrills commuter. For about $8,000, you'd expect a little more excitement. After all, you can get the Yamaha MT-07 with more power and agility, or even a Kawasaki Z650 at a similar price. Suzuki GSX-S 1000 GT. Next up is the Suzuki GSX-S 1000 GT, a bike that was marketed as the ultimate sport touring bike. Priced at around $13,500, it looks the part of a high-performance, do-it-all motorcycle. The problem? It doesn't quite do it all, at least not very well. The GSX-S 1000 GT might as well have been designed by someone who really loves the idea of making your back ache. The aggressive riding position, paired with its high-performance aspirations, makes it uncomfortable for long-distance rides. So, what's the point of a sport touring bike that doesn't really work for touring? Yeah, that's exactly the reaction most riders had. And let's talk about the handling. The GSX-S 1000 GT doesn't handle as gracefully as you'd expect. Sure, it's got the performance chops, but it's more like a slightly clumsy athlete who's got the speed, but can't quite stick the landing when cornering. It's a bike that leaves you feeling more meh than wow. It falls behind its competitors when it comes to the smooth, stable handling that riders demand in this class. 2024 Suzuki GSX-S 1000 GT tries hard, but honestly, the design feels a little dated. It's like showing up to a party in a suit that's a few years out of fashion. You're still technically looking good, but you're not going to turn any heads. And in a market where looks matter as much as performance, that's a big deal. Honda Rebel 1100T. And now, the Honda Rebel 1100T, a bike that tried to wear the crown of the touring-friendly cruiser, but ended up more as a compromise. Released as a variant of the well-loved Rebel 1100, the Rebel 1100T was supposed to cater to those who wanted to hit the open road for long-haul adventures. With its high saddlebags and windscreen, it was marketed as the perfect bike for touring. But, let's just say it didn't quite hit the mark. The saddlebags, while looking cool, don't actually add much to the bike's touring capabilities. They're like the fancy decorative cushions on a couch that are great for show, but not really functional. Plus, the windscreen doesn't do much to deflect wind at highway speeds. The Rebel 1100T is more about style than comfort, and riders soon realized it was a lot of money for a bike that didn't really fulfill the touring dream. Let's talk about the aggressive riding position. While this isn't necessarily new for cruisers, it certainly isn't very tour-friendly. Long rides on the Rebel 1100T quickly reveal the uncomfortable ergonomics. And for a bike that's marketed as a touring cruiser, you'd expect a bit more plushness, right? Instead, the ride feels a little too harsh and not nearly as refined as you'd hope. Harley-Davidson Sportster S. Harley-Davidson Sportster S has sparked some serious debate among motorcycle enthusiasts, and for good reason. While the goal was to bring a little youth and energy to their lineup, the Sportster S feels like it's trying too hard to be something it's not. A confused identity crisis on two wheels. Priced at a premium $15,500, you'd expect a performance ride that delivers on Harley's legendary promise of power, soul, and a heart-thumping experience. The engine, though powerful, is nothing to write home about. It's more like the generic power plant you'd find in a sport touring bike, rather than the rumbling, soul-stirring V-twin that defines Harley's essence. It's almost like someone borrowed the engine from a different brand and forgot to inject any real character. But hey, at least it's powerful, right? Well, yes and no. In an effort to balance performance and comfort, Harley dropped the soul factor. And then there's the ergonomics. The forward controls on a bike called a Sportster feel out of place, like trying to play soccer in a tuxedo. The positioning is more suited for a cruiser than a sport bike, which seems like a bit of an odd mix-up. It's as though Harley tried to put a sports bike's performance into a cruiser body and forgot that doesn't always work out the way you'd like it to. The styling, too, is a departure from the classic Harley look. While some younger riders might like the modern, aggressive aesthetic, the die-hard Harley crowd, who long for traditional cruiser designs, feel like they've been left behind. It's a bike caught between generations, failing to fully please either. Ducati Multistrada V4. At a price tag of $26,000, you'd expect this adventure bike to be a game changer. Sadly, it's more like a Swiss cheese, full of holes. For one, this thing overheats. Like, seriously overheats. Picture cruising down the highway with the wind in your hair, only to realize that your bike is basically a mobile furnace. Even at highway speeds, the heat radiating from the engine can be unbearable, making you feel like you're riding through a hot yoga class instead of enjoying the open road. At 500 pounds, this bike isn't exactly a featherweight either. Moving it around tight spots feels like you're trying to wrangle an angry bull. And let's not even get started on the off-road handling. In a market full of capable adventure bikes, the Multistrada V4 sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like bringing a shopping cart to a marathon. Sure, you can still finish the race, but it's not exactly the smooth, agile experience you were hoping for. BMW R1250 RT. The BMW R1250 RT is undoubtedly a tech marvel, but let's be honest, it's not winning any popularity contests. With a price tag starting at over $20,000, it's a motorcycle that feels like the financial equivalent of buying a luxury car. Sure, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck, but let's be real here. How many people really need heated grips and adaptive cruise control? If you're one of those riders who's fine with a bit of wind in your face and a motorcycle that doesn't come with a second mortgage, the R1250 RT is probably not your jam. Then there's the weight. At 617 pounds, this bike is a beast, and maneuvering it can feel like trying to wrestle a bear. Not the kind of challenge most new riders are looking for when they're trying to avoid a parking lot mishap. It's also not the kind of bike you want if you're someone who likes the feeling of the road beneath you. The electronic suspension and engine tech, while impressive, tend to create a bit of a disconnect from the ride. It's all too sterile, like you're piloting a piece of machinery rather than enjoying the visceral joy of riding. It's definitely not the raw experience many riders are craving. Harley-Davidson Livewire. And here it is, the one that has the motorcycle world shaking its collective head, the Harley-Davidson Livewire. With a starting price of $30,000, it's not just the cost that has people turned off. It's the fact that this electric Harley is missing everything that makes Harley. The iconic V-twin rumble? Gone. What you get instead is the hum of a refrigerator. So much for that soul-stirring roar that defined the Harley experience. The Livewire was meant to attract younger, tech-savvy riders, but unfortunately, it's more like an electric scooter than the raw, rebellious bike Harley's known for. And let's not forget the operating losses and lackluster sales that have made the Livewire a massive financial headache for Harley. The traditional Harley crowd? They're not exactly rushing to buy a $30,000 electric bike. And when you fail to capture your core audience, well, you know you've made a major misstep. It's like trying to convince a die-hard rock fan to switch to country music, especially when you can't even afford the concert tickets. Yamaha Niken GT. Now we come to the Yamaha Niken GT. This three-wheeled oddity has sparked endless debates in the motorcycle world. Priced at around $8,400, it's definitely one of the more unique offerings out there. But does its quirky design work in its favor? Not so much. For one, it looks like a midlife crisis on wheels. Two front wheels might promise extra stability, but they also make the bike feel more like a tricycle than a motorcycle. And the weight? At 595 pounds, the Niken GT can be a bear to handle in tight spaces. While it offers features like a 7-inch TFT display and heated grips, it just doesn't connect with riders in the way two-wheeled bikes do. It's like buying a pizza that comes with every topping you could ask for, but no cheese. The Niken GT is a love-it-or-hate-it bike, and most of the motorcycle community seems to land squarely in the hate camp. Royal Enfield Himalayan. The Royal Enfield Himalayan has a lot of promise, but let's be real, it's got more issues than a tabloid magazine. At $7,500, it's marketed as an affordable adventure bike, but it's plagued with problems. First, there's the fueling issue. This thing is known for leaning out and losing power just when you need it most, especially when you're tackling tough off-road terrain. Not ideal when you're in the middle of nowhere and need that power to push through. Then there's the build quality. From the joystick switch to the indicators, the Himalayan's finish is about as refined as a potato sack. It's one thing if you're paying a bargain price, but $7,500 should at least get you something that feels a bit more reliable. Add in the lack of adjustable levers for shorter rides, and you start to wonder if this bike was really made for anyone other than someone who's 6 feet tall and a seasoned mechanic. Harley-Davidson Iron 883. The Iron 883. This Harley might have that classic look, but it sure doesn't bring the performance that you'd expect. With a price tag of around $9,000, it's tempting to think you're getting a deal. But at 564 pounds, it's about as nimble as a boulder on a bike path. Maneuvering in tight spots? Prepare for a workout. And let's talk about power, or rather the lack of it. With just 50 horsepower, it's pretty underwhelming compared to many of its competitors. The 5-speed gearbox is clunky, and you'll start shaking, literally, if you push past 4,000 RPM. It's like you're sitting on a vibrating chair, only you're supposed to be riding. Then there's the engine's heating issues. This V-twin loves to run hot, and after a while, it can feel like you're on a motorcycle sauna instead of a sleek cruiser. It's like Harley's trying to cash in on nostalgia, but the Iron 883 fails to offer the modern touch that would make it a truly satisfying ride.